All right, nearly 7 years ago, a major fire broke out at a residential building in London. It killed 72 people. This was a devastating, horrific, terrible fire. And the investigation into the fire at the Grenfell Tower, which you're seeing on your screen right now, reveals failures by the government of the United Kingdom, builders, contractors, and a lack of strategy from those first responders who arrived onto the scene. This was the UK's biggest fire since World War II. Sadly, tragically, residents were trapped inside this high-rise apartment building. A retired judge that headlined the inquiry says all of these deaths were all avoidable. I want to bring in BBC correspondent Ellie Price, who is at the site in West London where that fire happened years ago. Ellie, we all remember watching this unfold on our screens here in the United States. I know for those of you in the UK who covered it, the horror was real, as you, in many cases, many people reporting from the scene saw this building burning and could understand what was happening inside because so many people were trapped. What did you learn reading through this inquiry, and what are people to take away from it?
Well, as you say, it was an absolutely horrendous time all those years ago, 7 years ago. Now, this inquiry has been going on for the last 6 years, and today we've had the result of that inquiry. The report spans 17,000 pages, and I want to bring some of the key phrases that we've pulled out of that report to really paint a picture of what went wrong. So we've heard about there was a path to disaster that led not just in the years to the run-up to the fire, but decades in the run-up to the fire. As you mentioned there were problems with the government, the central government here at Westminster, that the governments had, to many extent, had plenty of opportunities. There'd been other fires in a similar situation to this one, and lessons hadn't been learnt from those fires. From 2010 onwards, there was a real insistence from central government here that there should be deregulation, so that had an impact on safety, and that often safety was ignored, delayed, or even disregarded. And then, of course, there were the companies that were responsible for the materials that were built onto the tower behind me that were responsible for the fire. We've heard a lot in this report about the cladding, about the insulation that was essentially attached to the outside of the building. And in the report, we heard that many of those companies responsible for those materials showed a systematic dishonesty about the safety of those materials, and that they indulged in a deliberate and sustained strategy and scheme to mislead those putting the materials on about how safe they were. Then we move on to the refurbishment of the tower, the people behind that, so the architects, as you say, the contractors, even the local council, how they had in some instances acted dishonestly, in other instances been incompetent in varying different degrees. And of course, that tenant management organisation, the organisation essentially that's meant to be the go-between between the residents and the people that own the building, how they had let down the residents and treated them often as militant troublemakers. Quickly, I want to just tell you about this also, as you mentioned before, that the way the London Fire Service reacted, how there should have been more training, we hear, because of fires that have acted in a similar way, but the training for the firefighters on the ground was not sufficient. And then finally, how those who survived, the families who survived, how they were treated and how that was inadequate in the aftermath of the fire.
Ellie, one of the things that this fire, I think, brought into stark contrast for people outside of the United Kingdom was just this level of classism that exists in Britain, where you had people who were of lower income living in this tower. And as you point out, the report points out that a lot of the warnings were ignored by officials for many, many years. In other words, residents were saying that the building was unsafe, but for many people, they had nowhere else to live, and people ignored their warnings until this devastating fire. So how are now the victims, the families of those victims, responding to this report? And what has the government said to them in the wake of all of this?
Well, as you might imagine, the government has been very open-minded. It says it's going to take on board all the recommendations that have been made in the report. And of course, it's essentially apologised to those living in the situation that they found themselves. Let me just draw a picture of where I am. Behind me, you can see a memorial wall that's been stood here ever since the fire was ripped through this tower. And above it remains what's left of the tower. In its shroud, the worst of it obviously hidden by by a sheeting, but very much this is a testament to what happened in 2017 that still stands here and overlooks this community in West London, and it is very much part of the geography of this part of London. Now, we have heard from members, different groups attached to those who survived and people who lost people in this terrible fire. Many of them say that they have cautiously welcomed some of the recommendations, but they say justice, they feel, still has not been delivered. And that's because there have been no criminal prosecutions with regards to this fire on any level of anyone who may have been deemed to be responsible. Now, that's because the police have always said that they want the public inquiry to happen first. And now that's happened. The police say they'll need another year to 18 months to go through their investigation. So we're not looking at any criminal prosecutions being brought till the end of 2026. So justice, it would seem, is still some way off. And I should mention also there's been a lot of debate about what should happen to the tower now that, you know, after all these years on from the fire. Well, residents and indeed the families have said they don't want any memorial to stand in this place of this tower yet until they feel that justice has been done. And as I say, that could be some years on from now.
Yeah, justice delayed. Justice delayed is justice denied. Ellie Price, thank you very much for your reporting and extensive analysis of this horrible, horrible situation. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Good morning to our panelists here, and good morning to all the participants joining from various countries, I would say. I could see people from Brazil and US also joined, and Singapore and Middle East, of course, there are plenty of them. So this is a lot of takeaway, not only to India, but wherever there is a high-rise building, there's a lot to learn from this incident. So moving forward, myself, I'm Dominic. I've been in the fire industry doing a lot of webinars. So just to cover up, sorry. Okay. So today's topic is learning from losses, key takeaway from the Grenfell Tower Fire Report. So why this topic is so important to India? As India rapidly urbanizes and demand for a high-rise building continues to grow, it's imperative for us to reflect on global tragedies like Grenfell Tower Fire. So I have picked up some data, which I've been doing certain research about what exactly the number in India on this subject. So this webinar is not just about looking at the past, but about ensuring the lessons learned abroad effectively translated into our local safety protocol, building codes, fire prevention strategies. So as the latest data, India continues to face significant fire safety challenges in high-rise and tall building. Residential and commercial fire have been frequent, with many incidents attributed to faulty electrical system, lack of proper evacuation plan, and overheating of air conditioning unit, especially during summer. So in 2022, there were 7,566 reported fire accidents in India. So this is just a reported 7,500. And that leading to 7,435 deaths. Majority of these are from a residential building. So fire safety in tall buildings has become growing concern. So I want to cut short again. It is reported 10 out of 16 major fires since 2015 occurred in residential building. So of course, Mumbai, another city with high concentrated tall building faces unique firefighting challenges due to height of its structure. So another building that, another case which I want to talk about, whether India, with so much of population, can they respond in those golden hours? We call it golden hours due to traffic infrastructure. So what is the ultimate way to protect the building? So I keep saying that effective fire system should be in place, both active firefighting and passive fire protection With good evacuation strategy, you can protect the lives and properties. So there's more to talk about on the National Building Code, but due to shortage of time, I wouldn't take much time. I will straight away go to introducing our panelists today, our guest of honor, Suresh sir, with so much of experience, over 59 years of experience, specializes in housing, urban development, and sustainable infrastructure. He is former CMD of Woodco. He contributed to the Bureau of Indian Standard and served as Expert Appraisal Group or EIA from 2019 to 2022. He is also the chairman of National Building Code of India. Currently is involved in Kerala Urban Policy Commission and chairs of the Project Management Committee for Coastal Projects in Visakhapatnam and Kochi. He is now the president of Good Governance India Foundation, focusing on sustainable urban governance initiative. Mr. Suresh has held leadership role in various organizations, including chairman of IGBC, very prestigious institution in India, and he was the president of Focus. And two awards which I would like to mention, the prestigious Construction Industry Development Council's award, Industry Doyen, or Vishwakarma Award in 2011, and IGBC Hall of Fame in 2023. I would like to welcome Mr. V. Suresh. Before that, I would like to introduce a few other panelists quickly. These are the faces which you see commonly in India whenever there's a fire, whenever the mass awareness program comes. Suresh sir, Deshmukh sir. I adore him. He's one of the, I always call him that as a motivational, inspirational leader of the industry. And he has a passion for continuous learning and education, has acquired master degree in business administration, and is a lawyer. And he got a degree in IT as well as diploma in industrial safety. He's a retired fire advisor and director of Maharashtra Fire, Government of Maharashtra. He, along with his team, was instrumental to drive major reforms in Maharashtra fire and life safety, such as legislative reforms, academic reforms, capacity building program, mass educational awareness. So it's always great to have Mr. Deshmukh, and it's lovely to hear him when he speaks. So welcome, sir. We have another very important international panelist with us, Abhishek Chabra, again familiar face for almost all the Indians. He has been doing many webinars on conformity and testing and all that. So he's also a wonderful speaker. Lovely to have him today with his 20 years of conformity assessment experience, focusing on safety and passive fire protection. He has worked with testing labs on standards from North America, Europe, India, covering sectors like electronic, industrial, pharmaceuticals. He educates stakeholders and serves on advisory committee for standard development. Currently, he is a director of Fire Stop Contractors International Association, FCIA, and the National Fireproofing Contractor Association. He also runs his blog, Tick Guru, assisting professionals in the testing, inspection, certification industry. Welcome, Abhishek. Lovely to have you today. And another face, a regular face in the webinar, is Gopakumar, who is the president of NFE, and is very active in Bay Area ETD 20, ETD 30, ETD 50, and also actively taking part in IEC TC 64, TC 81. I welcome Mr. Gopakumar in the session. We have another international speaker or a panelist, Mark Roberts. He is an emergency medical expert and in evacuation. So Mark is a global expert in evacuation and emergency medical services, specializing in evacuation chairs. He has led numerous projects worldwide and is recognized for his innovation solutions and deep understanding of evacuation operations. As a consultant and CEO, Mark excels in project management, effective evacuation strategy. So Mark continues to significantly impact the field, particularly evacuation solutions. Welcome, Mark. I know it's early morning in UK. I think must be 6:45 now. Welcome to this wonderful session today. So we have final panelist, Abbas Khaled, and a lovely speaker. He's a versatile business leader and technocrat with 26 years of experience in business strategy, operations, infrastructure engineering, corporate marketing, former CEO of Sayadri Farms Sustainable Grassroots Initiative, and Executive VP at Marsh Risk Consulting. He has led many projects in thermal, fire, acoustic insulation, steel buildings, and cladding system. A thought leader in property loss prevention. So I would like to welcome Abbas Hayeb for this panel of this. So
thank you, Dominic.
This is my introduction of speakers. I will unshare my screen. I would now welcome our guest of honor, Mr. B. Suresh, to give address to the opening remarks on this subject, sir.
Thank you so much, Dominic, for the wonderful introduction that you gave. And more importantly, I'm happy that you could show us snippets of the Grenfell fire and hearing from not only from the media, plus also the technical point of view on what happened in that ghastly fire, 72 people dying in those one, and where fire protection is one of the things started over there in England in a very large way, and the Institute of Fire Engineers of UK and the wonderful standards of the Bureau of the British Standards Institution, all of them we are aware. But in spite of that, this happened over there. 72 people dying is a very major one, and primarily because of the one thing of the spread of fire starting from the ground all the way up to roast everybody, the whole curtain wall with the AC panels going in fire is something very, very serious matter. And like Dominic has just now indicated, the statistic over 7,400 fires and about nearly around 7,300 deaths in 2020 in India alone. And I'm sure as the president of the Fire Safe India Foundation, Deshmukh Sir would also be able to give some more dimension on what's happening in India in a very large way. And since we are going to have Abhishek also joining for Dubai, where also had seen some of the similar amount of fire that took place in many of the buildings where the whole curtain all around, the wraparound is where the whole fire took place, while other things could be there. But this is an area, various area. Two components are coming, not only the spread of the fire, combustible content, and this flammability going forward in a large way, and also temperature going up between the floor as well as the complete curtain wall all around that. That could be this could be glass or glazing predominantly, as is happening in most of the cases, or it could be the aluminum composite panel or ACP without the right level of fire resistance that you have. Now, of course, things have changed, or you can have GRP to come over there or GRC to come over there. And I was told yesterday by Abhishek, even it can be cross-laminated timber or can also be a facade component coming, or terracotta for that matter. So what will be the material that will be there to give the wrap around the structure in a very large way? Most important thing is the spread of the fire not only happening from a origin area, from there to not only horizontally but also vertically through the gap that will be there between the cladding material and the structural system, and also the temperature rise. Two components are there, heat as well as the fire spreading in a large, and smoke, the biggest component. And how we really take care of this particular thing is a very important aspect. Of course, the National Building Code of India, over a period of time, the 70 version, 83 version, 2005, 2016 version was reasonably good effort. That's the present document which is available. And for the information of all the participants who are there, we are all working on the 2025 version. All the 23 panels and the 1,200 committee members are working very hard to complete the contents of the NBC. So this is a good opportunity. So the input that's going to come from this particular seminar would also be an equally important input that will be coming to the committee going to deal with the part 4 on fire protection in a large way, more so in the context of facade related issue of curtain wall and related. Besides, various other things. We are going to discuss all of them, but specifically concentrate on the Grenfell fire. I'm going to concentrate on that. No other aspect I'll be touching as far as this particular one is concerned. But I want to assure all the distinguished participants who are there in their own way. They are brilliant in their own sector. Some bringing not only nationally, state level, internationally, the type of best practices coming. We are aware of the wonderful provisions of not only the great contribution I just referred to, the BIS and the National Fire Codes that you have from the UK, National Fire Protection Association, NFPA's wonderful document, especially in this particular context. And the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi has also brought wonderful documents of high-rise building. And you also have the Chinese and Singapore codes on the issues on the Shanghai-related work also. And, of course, our own National Building Code areas. Therefore, the primary areas rightly brought out by Dominic in his wonderful document. I think we'll have to identify. I have very limited time. I'll try to take it very fast. It's the right level of building material that comes over there that wraps around the type of problem in terms of structural integrity, fire resistiveness, plus also the flame spreadability and other related issues that come on fire aspects in a large way, which are used for cladding. So one is on the building material standards and cladding on that. And what are the regulatory issues in this compliance, in which the context of not only the local fire regulations, which of course I'm sure Deshmukh Saab will tell in a very large way, based, of course, the national guiding document of the National Building Code, which is also now really become a mandatory status, even though it's a guiding document. And therefore, the type of issues that's to be done in that particular thing and what requests to be done in the National Building Code in a large way. And lastly, the legal and policy framework to issue, very rightly articulated by Dominic in that cover note. So what I would like to indicate in the next about maybe 5 minutes over 10 more minutes I have is to really bring out the larger issue that comes over as far as this particular topic is concerned. Reasonably good amount of provision is there in the 2016 version of the NBC, both passive design plus also the active design that should become over there. And I always like to quote Abhishek in that the best solution that can come in this particular thing is a combination of not only what the passive design aspect should cover, plus also active design to be combined. And our own important committee member, Sandeep, also talks of the wonderful issue between the active and passive to work together, especially on this particular topic of the curtain wall related one and the facade related treatment large, because a large number of people are involved there. It's an interdisciplinary issue. The architect who wants to give an overall shape to it, the structural engineer giving the structural integrity of the building, and the facade consultant and the facade contractors who are going to come and give that particular layer to fix onto the structural. It has also got the structural integrity issue, fire resistance issue, and various other components issue, plus all the MEP consultants also are going to work together. So it's going to be a solution to this particular thing is an integrated, holistic, comprehensive approach has got to be there. A multidisciplinary team has to work in this particular thing over there. Not one person would not be having the specialization. Equally important is at the level of the builder and the type of consultants that he has through as the architect, structural engineer, civil engineer, MEP engineer, facade consultant, facade contractor, plus the other fire protection specialist or fire engineer, whatever word you would like to call for that. And what is there on the other side of the local body, be it a local body of a municipal corporation or the state fire service or a municipal fire service, how good are they in this particular one? And of course, as rightly brought out by Dominic, Deshmukh Saab has done a fantastic job in the last decade and a half with the Maharashtra Act and related issues. I'm sure you'll hear more of that. I will not even touch on that. But that's an equally important as the regulatory framework is an equally important aspect having to work along with the builder component or the one who is going to take up the project, all the consultants dealing with the design of the particular issue and execution and the regulatory framework at the pre-building permit level, occupancy certificate, and during the operation level. And to very briefly, as I understand the particular thing, I'm sure Abhishek will open in a much better way than what I'm going to put it. But my own limited understanding of the particular things that have worked in the sector are issues in respect of design, which will be done, the architectural design, the structural design, the facade design, MEP design, or design as an important issue, how all the things are integrated and coordinated in a large way. The second major component is the work on the installation issue, very failing in a large way. Even design is reasonably good. We are not having good amount of the contracting system for each one of them. It is not only the column and beam and slab that is important. When I say I'm talking to all the installations that come in, most of facade. Facade contract is a different animal by itself. Sorry, I didn't want to use it the wrong way. It's a different agency. What I mean is that. So you got to work along with that. It has got the structural index with the high winds coming at all those heights. How do you deal with that particular aspect? And as a material, how does it behave? And this is where information related to that first aspect, which I told on, the standards will come into a very large way of not only the material conformity in a large way, plus also installation conformity. How does it come on that? And if you are dealing with the passive and active together, the building code has got the provision that even if some of those particular things are an issue for smoke control, there are a large number of important information which are covering for closing the gap, if I may use a word. That is the most important issue. And between the structural building as well as the whole curtain wall all around any one of those particular facade that you have, the gap that you have there, how do you feel the horizontal level, vertical level, it doesn't move from floor to floor, whatever sealant that you require, whatever physical structure that you require to deal with all those particular things are very, very important. And how will somebody tell that it's the right way or wrong way? We, unfortunately, India still does not have the compliance information large way. I was very happy to learn from Abhishek or the good work he has done along with Paul Morrell, an international consultant dealing with the building material conformity assessment report, which UK has recently done, including for the Grenfell report. And that's an important component of somebody to tell that that particular system not only has independent material, plus into the fire resistance or flame spreadability or various other parameters that you want to see, including all the installation together, somebody has to take it has a compliance on that. We have not really gone to that degree. And let me confess openly, in this year of 2024, in spite of all the best consultants, builders being there, including fire authority, we still not gone to that level to give that. Even assembly, a door assembly is good, fire resistance rating, or a wall assembly, fire resistance rating, reasonably good. But in terms of the whole facade as a unit there, I'm given to understand there are some new groups which have come up in Chennai or other related area where they are trying to put some facilities to deal with the fire protection issues in line with the NFPA 285.
So you have only 2 minutes more. 2 minutes
Oh, yes.
more,
So
sir.
therefore, it becomes an important component of understanding the whole issue and how do you deal with that. And internally, I would wanted to indicate to you that the NBC panel are aware of what the present provisions are, what are the type of gaps that you have, learning as the theme is lessons, learning lessons from the Greenfield file, and which are the areas that requires to be incorporated, expanded, or clarified in a large way with clear understanding of to the user in a large way, to the not only the building user, and more importantly, the assets and facility management. At the end of the day, buildings are not the occupancy certificate and with all the NOC. How does it perform when occupancy is there and with the electrical installation fire or air conditioning fire or various fire, and how does it respond in a large way? So you have different type of users coming in the building, and AFM becomes an important component there, and you have to also cover that. Fortunately, NBC has got the Part 12 on assets and facility management, the only code which contains that beyond occupancy permit to go through the renewal certificate, audits to be brought into the system in a large way. So it's got so many layers of information coming. I'm happy that you'll also hear from Mark in a way on evacuation, and that's where during the occupancy stage in a fire of that nature, if 72 people has to be roasted to death, they could not even get out of the building. That means they're all got trapped. It is not that exit requirements are not incorporated in the building code. You have all the provision, but If you had large amount of the active one into the sprinklers to be done, sprinkler along with the facade assembly, which is also a 10% opening to be done for getting the smoke out, which is all incorporated in the building code. But we got to go beyond that. Where do we stand now? Which are the gaps there, and how do you add the new layers of information in the latest version of the NBC 2025? The contents of that are already under preparation there, and gaps are already identified. I would like to assure each one of you, many of the members who are in this panel are also active people in that group working on that, and they will be incorporated. And any input that will be coming from each one of you speakers, take my word, I want to assure on behalf of the Bureau of Indian Standards and the National Building Code team there will positively incorporate. So we'll have the state-of-the-art provision as far as NBC 2025 is concerned on Part 4, dealing with all aspects of fire protection, life safety, as well as public safety in a very large way. And with the type of people associated with that, I can assure you that. And thank you, Dominic, for organizing such a major event. This will give you best possible feedback, and I'm sure I will get some questions at the end of the presenter or some Q&A session of at least 15-20 minutes. So each one of the participants, they may like to raise you. I heard the number of people who are participating who are big leading builders and developers of a large way. They are at the end of the day going to take the prime mover. They are going to be the drivers for the whole thing to ensure that safe, resilient building is there to give assurance to all the people who are either residential occupants or commercial office space occupants. More so office space occupants, because the builder will a different type of office people with their own different flows coming over there, even though there's a commercial complex there. So it's very necessary to get them all together on the same page in a very large way. I'm sure between what Abhishek can do or Kalesh Saab can add on the particular thing will become important. And we are looking forward to a wonderful one. And I'm sure Gop will add on to all the aspects which, because we always put the blame on the electrical installation. It's not the electrical installation alone that matters, the lack of it or the bad aspect of the particular thing. I'll stop at this point of time within the 15 minutes time that you've given. Yeah. I'm sure I'll have a lot of time to open up at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Thank you. I'm just trying to give.
Thank you, Suresh sir. You know, I know that you can go on speaking for almost a day with so much of topics, so much information that you gathered in the 56 years of experience yours. India need to learn. You know, India need to listen to you. India wants to hear you. So we'll continue with your comments after finishing all the panelists. Then we'll go to more. I will now welcome our first panelist, Mr. Deshmukh, who's also the chairman of Fire Safe India Foundation. So I would like him to touch upon the fire safety inspection, audit, and legal framework. Over to you, sir. You can unmute, sir. Sir, you are muted. Deshmukh, sir, can I unmute?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dominic, for such a wonderful introduction of the all panelists and very vibrant keynote speaker that has given a lot of tremors in our hearts and the feelings for the public safety at large in India. And as most of us, we have a lot of exposure across the globe. We know the stringency of the laws there and the rate of conviction there and the accountability there. So I appreciate his honest confession that we are lacking. I subscribe to his views, and with that, I will just open up few thoughts that I have in my mind, especially looking at the Grenfell tragedy and the situation in India and the path ahead or the way ahead. First of all, in the UK, like developed country, it took 7 years for the public investigation report. That is the thing that is haunting all the time at the back of mind. I read the first version, then the second inquiry report, and the third inquiry report has come very recently. It is running into 17,000 pages, 1,700 pages. It's very difficult to go through the entire report. The summary itself stands with 186 pages. So whatever that the crux, I could see the highlights and understand the issue. And as we have been tracking the news from the day the Grenfell Tower tragedy occurred, I was fortunate or unfortunate, I do not know. Just 2 years before, I had an opportunity to visit this tower to one of the Kothari family living there. And I was surprised. I had my views. But then the views remain with you and you think that the things will change on its own. And everyone has a limited voice, but together, the kind of battery of the galaxy of the people that we are together, the cohesive approach is the only way ahead. In isolation, nothing can be done. So I always use the proverb, which is, it's churned out by myself. That is in collaboration, we can grow, we can prosper. In isolation, we will die. So with that punchline of mine, I just start. They have a concept called as a TMO. And this boroughs have handed over this responsibility to the TMO. And the TMO has miserably failed in their responsibility to look after the various issues. Second thing I could see from the report that the institute which I had a privilege to visit in Manchester, that is Exova Warrington, I had been there for the test of the lift landing doors of the lifts, witnessing that and understanding that. So such an institute they have. Third, they have the product certification mechanism, which we lack in India. We do not have the product certification mechanism. And the most important is there is no criminal proper prosecution in this case, even by the United Kingdom. And there is today, nobody stands guilty of it. There is no criminal proceedings against anybody. I don't think there is anybody put behind the bar for this case. This is what the information I get. Mark maybe update on the better information than what I possess. So how can people go scot-free after 72 people died? That is something horrendous. How that can happen? There is no accountability. And if that is the situation in the developed countries, I have my own worry as to in a heterogeneous structure of fire services and the building authorities and the town planning authorities and everybody doing it and going its own way. I don't know. We have a bit more, the challenge than as compared to even the developed countries. Now coming to the actual incident of the fire of the Grenfell that you must have read and most of you have understood that the fire started from a refrigerator, the house refrigerator. It's not even a commercial refrigerator. And the refrigerator power connector was not designed to take that resistance. And that was the cause of fire. Only one circuit breaker got tripped, but the main circuit breaker was not tripped. And the fire started from there. As per the United standards, what I could see in the FM labs in Boston, that they do not permit the refrigerator with the, they permit the refrigerator with the metal backing and not the refrigerator with the plastic backing. BS standards, they accept the plastic backing. That is what the UN report highlights for. And that fire, such a small fire, could have been extinguished at the spot at the incipient stage itself. That fire has grown and developed in a way and it has turned into a conflagration, which is an utter surprise. And the major cause for the development or the growth of this fire, which I could understand, is the ACP paneling. Now, ACP paneling in the new building code, we are completely discouraging. In spite of that, the code being a guiding principle for all of us, still you see many buildings in India with the aluminum cladding. There are many materials coming. Are we going to complicate our life and then again find a ways and means and a solution? The Honorable Justice, Mr. Martin, has clearly said this was an avoidable incident, number one. And number two, he says there's a dishonesty of all the agencies involved into it. So that, brings to me that the cohesive approach with a lot of honesty and will, whatever you do as a business or whatever, you do that. But you should be honest that what I am doing, it is ultimately should not affect anybody's life. And that conviction is lacking. That is what I could say with my 4 decades of experience in the fire services of India. So that has to be ignited. Now, how to ignite that is one challenge which we can flag this issue and together we can drive this crusade and we can see that this has to be ignited. Then the common issues, even the bureaucracy in United Kingdom is equally strong because we inherited the bureaucratic culture from them and they have improved a lot, but we are yet to improve. That is one problem. But political will, without political will, you cannot do. Whatever happened is wrong. We have a sincere condolences to the bereaved families and the people, those who lost their life. But the PM of the British Parliament coming on the floor of the House and apologizing the situation, I do not know what would happen in a country like ours. So how to ignite this political will? Because politicians have nothing to lose in this. Only I think this has to be beaten into their eardrums, and we have to see that there's a public safety. हम कुछ नहीं करते, कम से कम लोगों का जान का खतरा तो कम करते हैं. What if we cannot do, for the Mr. Mark's understanding? If we can't do anything, at least we can save the lives of the people. That's the minimum we can do. That is one challenge. Bureaucratic will is another one challenge which I already mentioned. Then the technocrats and the professional development and the professional growth. Now I see the United Kingdom, they have come with the Building Safety Act. It is not a fire safety act. It is a Building Safety Act. Like Mr. V. Suresh sir said, our National Building Code emphasizes all the chapters. Those are relevant to each other. They are interdependent on each other. And in isolation, one chapter dealt by one authority will not solve the problem. It is the moment that can be drive for having a Building Safety Act, in that everyone's role can be prescribed. It may be little voluminous document, but many things can be covered under the rules and interpretation or the explanatory statements given in that. So that is a dire need now. We cannot work in isolation. Now, for example, I'll give you, we as the fire authorities, we in Maharashtra, we give so-called a provisional fire approval, which is based on more on the prescriptive, is more of a prescriptive in nature, based on the provisions of the National Building Code, little bit of our experience, little bit of our local codes and the bylaws. But then that is conflicting with the building bylaws of Maharashtra, what we call as a unified development and promotion control rules. And they are specific to one city and specific to other authorities and the rest of the major municipalities in Maharashtra. And I'm surprised the provisions made in the building bylaws in compromising the marginal open spaces, in compromising the required staircases, in defining the high-rise building, those are in contradiction with the what is prescribed in the National Building Code. So there has to be uniformity. You cannot go in isolation as far as safety is concerned. Ladder is just a support, but ladder is not the means for the evacuation, the mass evacuation. You cannot do with the ladders. There 72 people died. We lost 93 people in the AMRI hospital tragedy. I still do not know what is the great lesson that we have taken, how much vibration we have done on that subject, how many times there are echoes and ethos of the society. So these are the challenges. 93 people died, and still we are allowing hospitals beyond the permissible height in the National Building Code. People want to remove the embargo of the hospital heights and issues like that. So everybody wants to make a buck out of the day at the end of the day, which is something you have to change the mindset. Thank you, Dom. I'll just complete in 2 minutes.
Yes.
You gave me buzz, right?
No. I didn't buzz
No,
it.
something buzz here. Something
I
buzz
think
here. I do
Mr.
not know what
Gopakumar
it is.
joined. Go.
Okay. Maybe that was okay.
Gopakumar buzz.
So coming back, we give the provisional fire approval, and once the building is ready, immediately they ask for the final fire approval. The final fire approval is given to the shell building. There is no interior done. There is no office layout spread. There is no upholstery, tapestry. There are no other building material. Those have come. We do not know the fire load of that occupancy, the behavior of that occupancy. We do not know. And we give the final fire approval. And then our role gets over. And after that, the building, for the using purpose, whatever interior decoration or whatever materials are used, on that we have no control. So second thing, in Maharashtra, it was my brainchild with the help of my team, because we had to deliberate a lot, and we introduced the concept called as a licensed fire contractor. And fortunately, some countries have it. That was a ratification for me. I didn't know about it. But the licensed fire contractors also, there's another one challenge. The licensed fire contractors are not supposed to give the final completion certificate unless the job is done by that contractor. But because of the builder's pressure, the societal pressure, the pressure of the other pressure groups, I will not say very clearly what is that pressure group. You all are wise enough to understand what I mean by the pressure groups. The fire contractors are constrained to forced to give so-called as the completion certificate from their side, which is we call as the Form A. So this is one anomaly, which one good thing we started, but there also people are trying to fudge with it. Second thing is the maintenance of the systems. I'm talking limited to only fire systems. The maintenance of these systems, the maintenance of the system, we introduce in our legislation that every 6 months, the building owner or the occupier or who in whose possession the premises is supposed to give the fitness of the certification. Now there also, I am surprised that the people, those are not qualified, they are not license holder, they go and do the job, and those have the license in their hand, they support them, and this license is sold with few bucks, license or the fitness certificate. Authorities have a very, very limited fire officials. The deficiency of the fire officers, as Mr. Suresh knows, and we all of us know, there is a deficiency of the fire officers and the fire personnel in India, as per the 11 Finance Commission report, is to the tune of 80%. And more one public interest litigation, the honorable judge in good faith told me there is a deficiency of the judiciary itself is 50%. What do we expect about the fire service deficiency to be removed? Then where do we go? What is the platform? To whose door we knock? And the only way out is the we together knock many doors. One day that door of the Alabama will open and we will find a way out. And we have fortunate that we have people like Mr. Suresh and Dominic, Mr. Abhishek, Mr. Kale, and Gopakumar also. We need to come together. It is a movement. It is a movement of the Fire Safe India. And that is why the Fire Safe India believes in its mission statement called as the Mission Fire Safe India. And we should together join and we can achieve it. Last but the least, you just give me the inclination as to how much time I have. Huh?
1 minute, sir.
Only 1 minute. Okay, thank you. So last but the least, I would say that the accountability and responsibility, unless it is clearly defined, it is very difficult to march with this particular movement. And I think this is a good beginning, very good topic chosen for the discussion, good panelists there. And let me listen to others and their views, and we can finally conclude and comprehend and make some recommendations out of this today's program and submit it to the different government authorities. That will mean something. So thank you so much for the patient hearing by the audience and my fellow panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So very well said, sir. And there's so much of topic that you covered, like political will, say first, let's save lives, and we cannot work in isolation. And together, we can prepare a note and circulate. So very well said, sir. I think we will love to hear you more once we complete this thing. So I would like to invite our second panelist, Mr. Abhishek Chabra, and I want to talk about the building material standards and certification testing. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you very much to everybody for listening in, and thanks for Dominic and the whole team for arranging for this. I'm going to start with saying something which may be perceived a bit contentious, and this is something that I say at the global level. Buildings that are built by companies have a very long life. Typically, buildings are supposed to last for 100 years. Any business that you would be representing is expected to be a long-running company, whether you are a developer, a contractor, a material supplier. The life of any method of governance, or I could say, how long is the government lasting as a unanimous will, is much shorter than the life of any building that we are talking of. So I want to start with saying that we have to take charge of all of this at our own. If you are a developer, you are building a building that will last for 100 years. The governments will probably not last that long around it. If you're a company who is concerned about your brand's reputation, it has a much longer life. So that's kind of the beginning that I want to start with. The subject is extremely complex that we are trying to address. And we are trying to bring about reform. We are trying to bring about a lot of change But the change has to begin with all of us doing our jobs right now, from tomorrow morning. So I want to start with explaining what is it that you can take care of instead of us asking for the minimum requirements to change worldwide. We are not talking of minimum requirements here. We are talking of fire safety. Building codes, guidance documents are documents that set in the minimum requirements worldwide. Add to that errors, add to that profit, lots of things will change. So the awareness has to start from us. I will explain something which me and Suresh sir were talking last night as well about this, called the design, install, inspect, maintain philosophy, which is a quality management system run process, which is making sure the whole life cycle, what has been talked about as the golden thread or the missing golden thread, as one of the investigations in the United Kingdom, is ensuring there is complete interconnectivity between where you start and where you end. So, starting with architects or consulting companies, there is a need for an understanding of correct design. And whoever is doing this design needs to take the responsibility of it. You could use building codes from any part of the world to guide you. You need to learn that these are guidance documents to do your job. If you are a designer, it's your job to design it right. If you feel you lack in design, hire an expert. You want to hire a facade consultant, you want to hire a fire consultant, you want to hire an MEP consultant. Remember who is taking the responsibility of design and pass on all that responsibility to them as an expert. Let them take the liability. Next, after the design is clear, we know the design is good, we move to installation. The installer, who could be a contractor, an applicator, a subcontractor, needs to have the right tools of assessing the conformity of products, materials, and systems. Who is assessing the conformity? Will they perform to fire? Will they perform to long life? There are several criteria. And assessing the conformity is very, very important. I'll take a small steer to talk about facade as a subject because this is something which is very pertinent. I've published some papers around it, and there has been a lot of reform in many countries, including UAE, about this specific way on how you can solve this as a problem. We need to assess the reaction to fire properties of materials of facade. We have to assess it correctly. There are several tests, and I will not go into American, British, European, whatever. It is up to you. Assess the reaction to fire of materials. Assess the property of a system. There are system tests to assess the conformity of a cladding system. NFPA 285, BS 8414, ISO standards, FM standards. There are several standards. Indian standards are evolving as well. We need to assess the system. So when we have this very clear that the material is assessed for conformity, the system and the system behavior is assessed for conformity, then the contractor is clear what to install. Design, someone else's responsibility, they take on the liability. Material sellers, suppliers need to claim how their material functions, and the contractor has to rely on assessing the conformity of material. And that is the second step of an installer. The installer has finished the job, but you cannot fully rely on the installer or the contractor. So you need an independent building inspector. This building inspector has to report into the client or the authority. It needs to be independent. You cannot have a building inspector hired by a contractor. It's like me checking my own work. Not allowed. The competencies of what the inspector should be capable of are very clear. There are lots of international standards, and I can talk about them at a later stage. The installation has to be inspected by someone through the course of installation, not at the end, but throughout the job of construction. This company is taking the liability and responsibility to say what was designed and approved is being installed. They are not taking the responsibility of the design. They are not taking the responsibility of whether the material functions correctly or not. That is someone else's responsibility. That is the seller of the material. And this finishes the handover. At the handover stage, if anything has gone wrong, designer's liability responsibility is clear. Material suppliers' claim at a material level is clear. The contractor is very clear that their products are chosen correctly. The design has been implemented. There is proof of compliance of the design of the system, and the building is handed over. Once the building is handed over, there has to be maintenance. The building changes its life. Sometimes they change their use, their function. Hotels are converting into residential, residential are converting into hotels. There is change of use. A building is built for 100 years. When the owner of the building is supposed to maintain it, there has to be the function of the building inspector annually, sometimes even more. And the guidance documents, the building codes are guiding about this. It's written all over. So this covers how the process of the golden thread should be. I can very briefly touch up again about cladding fire safety. And cladding fire safety, you have the responsibility of a specialist facade or a fire or both consultants who have to sign and say this cladding design, engineering drawing is good to go. The engineering drawing has to define materials and system design as a combination. They can call for conformity of building materials behavior as per any standard. We are not relying on government anymore. We are relying on the safety and liability of that company who is designing. If you're a facade consultant, if you are a specialist consultant, if you're an architectural firm, you need to be known as someone who did a great job. That's why you will be hired again. It's plain commerce. If there is a fire accident, people will say, who designed it? Who built it? And I'm 100% sure within the construction industry, whichever building has caught fire, everyone knows who did what. Everyone knows. So we need to close that gap. I will end it there. Right now, I'll keep it very brief and I will take rebuttal questions if required. Over to next. Let's save time. Dom.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek. A lot of points you covered. I was trying to take notes. There's so many, two important points that I would like to highlight that, assess the material for fire reactions. So that's one thing. And appoint building third party, independent building inspector, who also to be, and accountability. So very well defined in your, 15 minutes of a talk. I now welcome our, guest from UK, Mr. Mark Roberts, who specialized in evacuation. So I would like to hear from him what are the emergency response evacuation protocol that you recommend to all of us, especially to India. Over to you, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. Soon to be your afternoon, I think. I'm just going to share a few slides, which hopefully will work, and hopefully you should be able to see this. Excellent. So I'll just get rid of this as well. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to cover, from an evacuation point of view, learning from the losses, which is a slightly different angle to what other people are saying. I'm just trying to move on my slides. Right. So first of all, what I wanted to do is there's lots of intelligent people in the room and listening. But in the UK, which actually impacted on Grenfell, there's the concept that came from a law in 2005, which is the Regulatory Reform Fire Order, the concept of the responsible person. Now, what I think it's very important just to clarify quickly what the responsible person idea is, but it basically means, and this has been taken through global legislation now and is even reflected in the Indian legislation, is a responsible person is essentially the employer, owner, or person that has control over the premises or the building or the business and is legally required to ensure the safety of everyone on the premises. And what that essentially means is that person, not the fire service, not the person who builds the building, has to do a risk assessment and make suitable, sufficient assessment of the risks which prevent people being exposed to danger. It's a concept that's taken place, but what does that mean? It means that the person in the building who can't delegate that responsibility is responsible for making sure that building's safe. So what does that mean? It essentially means they're not going to kill anyone in an emergency. They're not going to injure anyone in an emergency, not putting anyone at risk. They're not going to delegate that responsibility, and they have to put in a plan. And what we've seen since 2005 is that everyone around the world has put in the concept of the responsible person in one shape or form. And you can see this in the National Building Code, especially in Part 4, and also the rights of persons of disabilities if you look from a disability perspective. So how does this actually impact Grenfell? Well, the reason why it impacts Grenfell is that we already had this concept of the responsible person, and nothing actually worked on the day. And there was somebody that said something very interesting, which was the access and the reaction to property. We have to make sure that that is delivered, because one of the other things that somebody said is having the political will, because it doesn't matter about having a standard if it's not instilled legally within the UK or in India or globally. So putting it in regards to Grenfell, why didn't it work? Well, essentially, we've all, as architects, builders, construction related experts, we've got to protect the vulnerable. So if we look at who is actually the vulnerable, well, what we need to do is essentially identify who the vulnerable are, and as a key requirement, ensure there's an effective evacuation strategy. And what happened in Grenfell is they didn't actually identify, they didn't have a plan. So if we put that into context, you've got everyone believes in equality. Equality is great. But if you look at this little guy on the right, he doesn't necessarily mean that equality means that people get equity. And what we need to do when we're building a building, we're looking at it from an evacuation point of view, we need to put everything in place where this little guy can actually do exactly the same as everyone else. Now, what does that mean in regards to safety? Well, if you look at some stats in regards to the world, but also Grenfell, 15% of the world is registered as disabled, and it's actually higher in India. But if you look at the fact, 15% of the world is registered as disabled, and there's been lots of studies on this concept called invisible disabilities, which basically means that it's in an emergency, these people will be classed as a person of reduced mobility, which means that in an emergency, they would have an invisible disability, which means that they wouldn't be able to evacuate a building. So if you put the people that are registered as disabled and you actually add the extra 10%, have this invisible disability, whether they're old, they're infirm, because they can't use an elevator in an emergency, it means 25% of a building couldn't evacuate in an emergency, whether it's the fire cladding or anything. It's a physical pedestrian dynamics issue, 1 in 4. So now, if we look at Grenfell, and this terrible tragedy, 72 people died of the 227 people in the building. That is 24.1%. Don't you think that's incredibly close to 25? Now, interestingly, 15 of those 37 people were disabled that died, and 17 of the 67 were children who were vulnerable, who could not evacuate on their own, which means that 41% of the people who died that night were disabled, and 44% of the people that died were vulnerable or had reduced mobility, which means that it's clear, and a report showed this, that there was a disproportionate amount of people that died that were either disabled, person responsive, people of reduced mobility, or children. So vulnerable people, who I've said before. So it's clear that, in my view, that the reason why Grenfell, and there wasn't a plan in place, is the fact that the vulnerable people in the building weren't taken into account, and there wasn't a plan in order to evacuate people, which represents 25% of the people in a building. So what does that mean? Well, some key learnings from Grenfell are, so looking at the inquiry that a guy called Sir Martin introduced, is he actually said that if you look at this report, and it's a very big report, as a lot of people have said, is that they found some key learnings that I'm going to share with you, and I've broken down. So essentially, they've looked at this RRO, which was the law at the time. As we said before, the fire safety order and the building safety order is now derived from Grenfell. But what it was clearly a case, even though it was in one of the most advanced cities in the world, that the fire services weren't able to respond. And what's clear is that it is not the emergency services' primary role to rescue people. It is the building's owners, the responsible person's responsibility to evacuate people out of a building. So first of all, they had a plan, because the RRO only covers commercial buildings. This was residential buildings, and essentially they didn't have a plan in place. So they didn't have a plan, and they also expected the emergency services to rescue them. And then what they decided to do is they had a stay put or a shelter in place strategy, which basically depends on compartmentalization before you get rescued or to put the fire out. And it was unthinkable that this wouldn't work. So what they did is they told everyone to stay, and then after 20 minutes, the fire had spread so extensively that people couldn't evacuate, especially being mobility impaired. So if we look at those 2 points and 2 learning points, you've obviously got shelter in place. The point of shelter in place is to basically keep people safe when they're not directly affected by the fire. And this was introduced in the UK 76 years ago, which clearly in its own right shows that it's outdated. So shelter in place isn't an effective evacuation strategy anymore. And if you look at the fire protected stairwells, the compartmentalization, there was a report in 2019 and many more since, which basically inspects around the world thousands and tens of thousands of doors. And it essentially says that 76% of the fire doors inspected were not fit for purpose and would not work as this diagram. So one of the 2 strategies that we need to learn is essentially stay put evacuation is not together in the strategy when you're designing a building from that point of view. And the other part is an area of refuge. What happened is that from an evacuation strategy point of view at Grenfell, when they were discussing stuff, which there wasn't much evacuation strategy, essentially the concept that all the people that are in a wheelchair or vulnerable go to a place and a refuge, and they'll wait to be rescued where everyone able-bodied evacuates, that isn't effective. So as part of the strategies around the world, we need to say that a refuge is great for all people as a temporary point of safety, but is not an ultimate point of safety. So if we look at Grenfell and we look at the studies around the world, there are 3 main factors for escaping a building. So one of the things that you've looked at today is the time to recognize a fire with a fire system And also the number of evacuation routes are critical. Like in 9/11, unfortunately with the Twin Towers, there was one elevator shaft, the plane hit the one elevator shaft, everyone couldn't evacuate. So from an architectural point of view, you need to look at the evacuation routes. But the key thing that is overlooked is then the ability to use those evacuation routes, which is why the majority of people that unfortunately couldn't get down the stairs in Grenfell were because they had these obviously challenges with being disabled or being a person of reduced mobility. So if you put that into context, we spend lots of time in India and around the world getting people into building, but we need to make sure our building codes and our safety codes actually focus on evacuation strategies and getting people out as well. And there's a very clear strategy that's come out of Grenfell, which is now taken into a place. So these factors for escape are very important, and as part of this methodology is what we should take going forward. Because if you look at these factors, if you've got somebody in a wheelchair here, you can't just carry them down. It's just not practical anymore. And also the people that aren't mobility impaired, if you're trying to take somebody down, you stop the flow of the evacuation. So you have to make something in place, which as some of you know, we work with products like this, like Evac Chair, which essentially means that it's easy and straightforward to evacuate, but you still need a plan. So the summary of key lessons and Sir Martin's points are as follows. So if we look at this, essentially what it clearly shows is we need to discontinue the use of shelter in place or stay put evacuation strategies when we're designing a building. We must use a refuge as a temporary point of safety, not an ultimate point of safety. And we've got to review evacuation plans on a regular basis. One of the things that was a key recommendation of the report is that every building in the UK should have prepare a personal emergency evacuation plan, which is if somebody is registered as disabled, they have a way and a strategy for getting them out, which is a key point where majority of people with Grenfell would have then actually survived. And these PEEPs, essentially, when they developed from Grenfell this fire safety order, which is developed into the Fire Safety Act, one of the things that they looked at is they made it mandatory that a PEEP should be put in place. And what happened is when the fire safety order a number of years came and had royal assent, at the last minute, the current government at the time pulled the mandatory requirement for a PEEP. And then the recent final review from Sir Martin has then said again that this should be mandatory for the word of a PEEP to get somebody out in an emergency. So from that point of view, that the current government, now that it's changed, has actually said they will take this into account and it will make a key difference. Once we've got that PEEP in place, if we can ensure that we're ready, and a guy actually said earlier about practicing and actually enforcing this, then we can make sure that people can evacuate like you would a fire extinguisher from that point of view. So from my point of view, it might be a little bit contentious. It's not necessarily the building design, it's the strategy you put in place. And if you look specifically at Grenfell, it was the disabled and people with reduced mobility that were the people that perished that night. What I would say is a PEEP is critical, which I've just mentioned. This is an example of a PEEP, and you're most welcome to contact me. And it's a global PEEP, and I'm willing to share that with anyone who's attended the webinar to learn how a PEEP can benefit that business. Hopefully that's of some insight that's of interest to you, and thank you for the opportunity today. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you, Mark. Very well covered the importance of evacuation strategies and the statistics of how disability people left. The majority, 30-40% people die are disability. Very interesting to see how the National Building Code, the Revision 1, will cover the refuge point and evacuation method, especially focusing on senior citizens and disabled people who lives on the high and tall building, especially residential. Thank you very much for highlighting these points, Mark. We have recorded this. I'm sure many of us will learn out of it. And stay back and let's see what question comes to you. I'll go to the next panelist. Is Mr. Gopakumar. We just had a webinar yesterday on fire due to short circuit. Is it true? Very interesting topic that we did. We had around 480 participants, and we did yesterday at 4 o'clock. I think in continuation to his, everybody blames the moment the fire occurs, it's a short circuit. And I would like to know from Mr. Gopakumar that, let's see how National Electric Code, the new 2023, being enforced in all the places, is our electrical consultant, our electrical engineers are aware of these new changes and interpretations. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, all panelists and the participants, and thanks, Mr. Dominic, for inviting me and giving an opportunity for discussion. Actually, when we talk about fire and electricity, the electrotechnology, we don't talk about fire, we talk about the thermal effect of electricity. It means electricity should not create a temperature more than certain limit. If the temperature is more than the limit, the electricity, the supply has to be disconnected. This is the idea. Because more temperature, on the fire triangle, this is the danger. Now, to achieve this, the protection against thermal effect, there are multiple measures, including, sometimes some of the electrical apparatuses produce heat while working. Sometimes, the current carrying capacities of the conductors has to be sized in such a way that the protective device should be able to disconnect. So, it's a big technical subject. So, as Mr. Abhishek was telling, the concept which is followed all over the globe with respect to electrotechnology is design, selection, erection, initial verification, and periodic verification. So periodic verification talks about how you are maintaining and how you should do periodic verification. This concept of this design, selection, erection, verification, and initial and periodic verification, some of the items are totally missing in our country. Especially, for example, initial and periodic verification. The IS 732 1987 has included the subject of initial and periodic verification, which was from one of the 1980s IC standard. It has included about 10 subjects for testing of the electrical installation. Unfortunately, these are not even, the market didn't even started it until now. After the NEC 2023, once when we started this mass awareness classes, people started learning about the subject. Then only, sometimes people ask, oh, all these are there already in the standard, but we never do. But now the awareness is coming and the people start doing it. But now, once when you start learning and try to do the verification, to fully, then you will be able to find out the mistakes. Then somebody should clean up the mistake. They have to rectify the problems. Then again, retest it. All this process, the knowledge of this process to the electrical engineer to understand and do it properly, it may take few decades. Because these testings, it has evolved over a period of time. And now, 30, 40 years, we didn't do anything, and now we suddenly start doing it. It takes a lot of time. Here, one challenge which we face is, generally, electrical engineers think that the safety in a building is ensured by the electrical inspectorate. This is not correct, actually. Every state has got a notified voltage. Above the notified voltage, it is the job of the electrical inspectorate. Verification or periodic verification is the job of the responsibility of the state government mechanism. Below the notified voltage, it is the responsibility of the owner of the building. And unfortunately, most electrical installations within the building are below notified voltage, where the role of electrical inspectorate is zero. They are not. It is not their responsibility to come and verify the wiring and the installation within the building. As a result, what happens is, nobody carefully analyze whether the selection, erection, and of these materials are in a good condition or not. This is so the notified voltage is a very important subject with respect to electrical installation. Another subject which is equally important is there is no mechanism of skill, setting the skill or finding out the competency of a designer. There is no defined electrical consultant. So as a joke, sometime I used to say, electrical consultant is a person who calls himself as a consultant. That is the only qualification required. So you call yourself as a consultant, next moment onwards you are a consultant. So whether he is able to do the design based on the standards and all, it's of course, lot of non-standard designs are going on, and you are aware that during our programs we are discussing in open. You see, the concept of design, selection, erection, verification, this has to be carried out by people, those who are improving their knowledge or skills either annually or once in 2 years or once in after a certain period. They have to learn again, they have to ensure that their skills, their competency is upgraded. This is also not happening, unfortunately. Example, electrical contractors, there is a mechanism. The electrical contractor, some states, they say they have to write an examination, they have to pass the examination, and maybe as Deshmukh sir told, there is the pressure group. If he belongs to the pressure group, he gets the certificate. Imagine he got a certificate at the age of 25, and he will sign the document until he is 80 years old. And in between, he not even open a document and he never read. He is simply signing. So the improvement of the skill set or the improvement of competency is a subject which all of us should together put, and we need to really work on it. So basically, this notified voltage, the who is designing or who is responsible for designing the electrical installation, or who is responsible for carrying out the verification. Unfortunately, as I said, verification is a subject which so far it don't exist in India. Unfortunately, it don't exist. It is yet to start. As a result, we have to live with whatever the quality, whatever the installation given to us by the contractor. We have to live with this. This is very difficult. Another subject, even if I wanted to imagine, I am the owner of a building. I know that my electrical installation is not in a good shape. I wanted to make an electrical safety audit or a verification. Generally, what happens is there is no qualification practice or criteria. As a result, people look for qualified persons to do this job. The only qualified person somewhere written in the regulation or somewhere in the act rules are the certified energy auditor. Unfortunately, energy auditing and safety auditing are two different jobs. As a result, what happens is most of these safety audits are carried out by the so-called energy auditors. Majority of the energy auditors, they are not aware of the basic electrical engineering subjects. I'm sure once when I make this subject, a lot of people are against me, but I don't bother. It's a truth that the safety audits are carried out by non-skilled or non-competent persons. So as a result, what happens is they recommend something. Example, you put recently I was looking at the audit report. The recommendation is you put 30 milliampere in all the circuits. If you put 30 milliampere in all circuits, you will get a very safe installation. But as soon as you switch on your equipment, it will trip. So you cannot use electricity. So usability is also an issue. So some of the areas which we have to work is especially the skill development and working with the government to make some kind of defining who is the electrical consultant, who has to do this particular jobs and all. Once when we go to the last mile, since there is no qualification criteria for the person who is doing the job, of course, there is no responsibility for him. As a result, what happens is people always go behind products which is making exaggerated claims. Example, wires. There are companies who say that I have a wire made with some special things put in sunlight for 24 hours, so it will not catch fire. So some big claims are made by manufacturer, and people always believe these claims. The seriously people don't, or engineers don't look into the standards, the requirement of the standards. Instead, go behind the claims of the manufacturer. One such product yesterday we discussed in our program. This is the IoT based. IoT is a big subject. Everybody need IoT. The world need IoT. But utilizing the word IoT, somebody made a product called as IoT based device which will ensure 15 or 16 safety measures as per IS 732, and he started marketing it. After some time, the electrical inspectorate of one of the state government made a circular government order saying that this is a very good product, you install it everywhere. Or then what happened is all the fire departments, they started insisting, everybody should put IoT based device, every building should have IoT based device, and they should show the readings. What kind of readings are you going to get? Somebody is going to get a shock and the person died. Is the message or what? Now monitoring is not safety. Then what happened is the third line, the electrical inspectorate, after 2 years, they make again another government order saying that every building, all electrical inspectors should ensure that IoT based microcontroller device for electrical safety must be installed in all high-rise buildings. Unfortunately, the claim of this manufacturer, I have my doubt whether he is an electrical engineer or not. Because the claims are, like it's a catalog, very nicely made catalog. He is claiming about 20 parameters. My black box will give you 20 parameters. Then the question is, who is testing it? He is claiming as per a standard IS 732, which is not at all a product standard. It's a installation standard. So basically, these exaggerated claims also we should, try to stop at some point of time. Of course, in the National Building Code 2016, one of the subject we handled very carefully, which is the lightning protection. The non-standard lightning protection devices were not allowed to be used in a building, which went for litigation. Then there was a case, and all those things happened. I think in this time in NBC, it would be great if we can address these exaggerated claims and try to stop these companies in selling non-standard products, because we cannot expect every fire engineer or every MEP person to be an electrical expert to select such device. So people naturally believe the catalog, and if there is an NABL certificate, nobody looks at what the certificate contains. People only look at the seal of the NABL. As a result, such products are also being used, which is highly dangerous. By the time we realize that we made a mistake, there will be, disastrous situation. So basically, electrical installation is an area which need, very good concentration. And if an installation is made or designed, selected, erected, verified as per the recommendation of the National Electrical Code or the standards, we can be sure that today we claim 80% fire from electricity. This can be reduced to maybe 8% fire from electricity. This is possible. Thank you very much. You are on mute.
Yeah, I'm muted. Come back. Very interesting topic. I think the time passed in 15 minutes. You covered very interesting topic like competency of the electrical engineer to be upgraded, and also non-skilled person doing safety audit. There's the energy audit and safety audit. So you gave a definition of these two professionals, and also product coming into market with advertising commercially, trying to sell without verifying, without testing. So very important topic that you have covered. And also the National Electrical Code of India, how it's changing, how people started accepting in design. So I will go to the last speaker before we take Q&A. Such a vast, interesting subject from everybody. I think we could have run for 3 hours, 4 hours, but I'm things being Saturday, we'll have patience to listen to 2-3 hours. Ideally, we should have a seminar like this the whole day. It would have been nice. I'm sure Mr. Deshmukh, under the umbrella of Fire Safe India Foundation, will have a day seminar to deliberate these kind of things as a detailed session that we can have. So I've been asking Mr. Deshmukh to propose a wonderful seminar in the month of November. So moving to Abba Sahib Khale, I would like him to talk about HPR aspects in property loss prevention and highlight social and economical impact. Over to you, Abba Sahib.
Thank you, Dominic sir. Thank you, all the panelists. Respected Suresh sir, Deshmukh sir, great friend Abhishek, Gopa sir. I think you have set very good ground for me, being last speaker. And I would like to cite some of the very good points from all of you. I think most important thing, my sincere condolences to 72 deaths. And I request honestly to all of you to see the coverage of last press meeting conducted by Sir Martin. It is for more than 45-50 minutes. He has given his ultimate thoughts with his two colleagues, and one of them is an architect, a lady architect, and I was really, to be very frank, not I'll say impressed, but I was very much I appreciate the effort, the way they have conducted the entire investigation. Building was constructed around 1974, was refurbished around 2015-16. There are various reasons behind why building was refurbished. Suresh sir, Deshmukh sir covered that particular subject. I don't want to dwell into that particular thing, but then when it was refurbished, the sort of mistakes were done by each and every stakeholder. I think Sir Martin has clearly accepted that it was fault of all of us here. I think I'm not going by the citizenship or nationality, but then all the global residents, for that sense, that local law of land, that we killed those 72 people. Gopa sir raised a very important aspect, and it has been highlighted by Sir Martin in his report every now and then throughout his entire speech: dishonesty and incompetency. He has really dragged attention to each and every stakeholder, right from local government, from the social housing authority, to London Fire Brigade, to architects, to contractors, to manufacturers, to subcontractors, and everyone, and accepted the fault that we missed on something called professional integrity. Abhishek very well explained the overall concept. What we are expecting here to learn sort of some good aspects from this particular inquiry. I think we had, like Deshmukh sir said, severe incidents, fire incidents, and we don't learn at all. But from 14 June 2017 till last on 25th September 2024, I think phase 2 of this report took time because they had gone to minute details, got the entire inquiry to the best of standards, neutral approach. Even they have conducted tests on the cladding used and whatever was blamed. So, and after that, they have come up with this final verdict, or whatever you can say, as a final version of the report, as the responsibility. and tried to give justice to the people and families who lost their lives. The most important thing highlighted in the report is fire strategy, and this has been I'm advocating for last so many years. हर बिल्डिंग का कुंडली बनना चाहिए फायर का, राइट फ्रॉम ग्रीन फील्ड स्टेज. I think we have a file of NOCs only. Right from day one of the building to the last day of the building, there should be a very well updated fire strategy document. There should be people who will be um, professionals. Risk assessment is been very well blamed in this particular report. The risk assessor was not qualified. The risk or fire strategy reports, there were 3 reports, they were incomplete. There were not sufficient details filled in. Then architect's role. I was surprised to know, I was delivering a lecture on one of the forum with Council of Architects, and there were more than 150 colleges. And I asked this question, how many architectural colleges teach this subject or consider National Building Code in their curriculum? And I was surprised to see 1 or 2 colleges confirming the basic idea. So yes, sir, I think we need to have this aspect very rigorously. We have to drive with Council of Architects. You are making buildings in this country. The law of land talks about the local regulations, and we are not teaching National Building Code. What we are doing? I think professional integrity is something we have seen, and then competency, like Gopal sir said, you'll be surprised to see the findings. The cladding material guy, like Gopal sir said, claimed so many bad things. The certification was done for one system, and the installed product was something different. It was for riveted system, which classified for one European classification. I don't want to get into that particular subject, but then he managed everything. The facade consultant was knowing that this is not going to be a good thing. The detailing was a big problem. It is not only cladding, it is not only insulation, PIR insulation materials, but PVC windows, the air gaps, the cut open edges were very much of bigger concern. Devil is in detailing. There are so many things. There are good documentaries available on this subject. I urge all of you to please visit BBC, then Sky News, then The Guardian. There are very good documentaries with animation and detailing. There are very good interviews of occupants, how they are facing. I think Mark mentioned about 25% with person of reduced mobility. You'll not believe, Mark, if you see the interview, the rest of the guys were also very much in problem because of dense, hot smoke. There is one very serious interview of one of the occupant who was rescued around 6 o'clock, and he was awake from 1:30 a.m. Believe me, the way he has narrated the entire story, I think unless and until 2 firemen helped him, he was unable to get out. So failure of stay put policy and all those things, you can very well cover there. I will like to come to the testing standards. They have also blamed testing standards for their orientation and representing the correct field installations. And these are the some things which we should learn from standards like International Maritime Organization, naval standards, or say insurance companies like FM Global. Test for actual condition. The vertical cladding and vertical insulation material. You'll not believe the 6 mm thick polyethylene foam core. The 1 kg of P core provides 5.5 liters of petrol, equivalent petrol burning value. So you can imagine the entire building being cladded with that, with cut edges and very shabby finishing and all those things. They are complaining every now and then. Residents were complaining every now and then. But unfortunately, the tenant management organization, TMO, which Deshmukh sir mentioned, never took them seriously. So failures on all those things. The good lessons are there. I would like to quickly share one report with you, Dominic sir, with your permission.
Yes.
this report is basically by FM Global, and I urge everyone to please read that. So let's start from this particular. I think we know what happened here. Our tribute to them. This is another example, Dubai Torch Tower. I think second time in 2 years. Similar conditions like Diwali crackers. Within 20 to 30 minutes, the fire was for the from bottom to top. This is another building, Honolulu's Marco Polo, 100 million loss, and the report which I was talking about. Grenfell, the perfect formula for tragedy, highly combustible construction plus lack of atomic fire sprinklers equals to tragic catastrophic loss. The last table, conclusion table, if you see, they are divided exterior construction in two categories, combustible and non-combustible, whether building was having sprinklers or not, and then they have arrived with the fatalities, how many fatalities happened. Grenfell Tower, June 13-14, in UK, combustible cladding, yes, automatic fire sprinklers, no, and fatalities 18. And here is the strategy which I spoke about. When they refurbished the building, they have added lots of combustibles, and that's where the building fire strategy was not updated. The stay put policy at the time of 1974, which was defined, was known to fire department, and unfortunately we heard from Mark that 20 minutes, the precious golden time, was lost. The decision was taken far later. So those documents, if you're available, in one of the interview, I heard the fire brigade officer, he was not even made available the plans. So the building facility management, even their authorities were not at all updating their records. Even flat numbers were not updated. I think there are so many shocking things which you will see in those documentaries. The second thing, on May 19th, 2015, Baku, Azerbaijan, again combustible cladding, no fire sprinklers, 17 deaths. So this is the important thing, and what you can say, conclusion from this report by FM Global. The loss impact is greatly reduced when automatic sprinklers are installed in buildings made of non-combustible construction. As shown in the chart, the worst outcome are when fires begin in buildings that lack both sprinkler protection and the proper construction. So initially, the non-combustible exterior, no automatic sprinkler, and the building was here, the Grenfell Tower, and then when it was converted, refurbished, it became highly combustible exterior with no automatic fire sprinklers. The ultimate aim of all of us should get into the top of the this pyramid, non-combustible exterior with automatic fire sprinklers, where the extent of social and economic impact will be very less. I have personally experienced this example with the performance-based testing. I tested the sandwich panels for temperature control facilities, and one of the facility in Nasik with FM approved sandwich panels, I have personally witnessed this particular pyramid, wherein the firm which I was working for, Sayadri Farms, I did their project when I was in Lloyd Insulations. I convinced Mr. Shinde, the leader there, to go for approved panels, because food facilities have great risk of fire because of PIR combustible panels. So with FM approved panel, that risk was reduced. Unfortunately, on 13 June 2014, they had this fire, but it was controlled. Otherwise, it would have been a 90-80 crore loss. It was controlled to only 1.5 crore loss. These things work. The social impact in that case would have been, the facility is created as a common facility for more than 18,000 farmers. They would have not even thought again. I'm talking about 2014. And as we stand today, they are more than 1,000 crore big company, a farmer producer company. So these things work. The last examples which I gave you, and these are the three buildings in different coordinates of this particular pyramid, and we need to go for this particular thing. Are there any good example? Yes. And I should cite this example of DLF. Congratulations to DLF management. And this was during Mr. Dheri's tenure there. DLF replaced all the ACP panels after Grenfell Tower, I think in the year 2018-19, from their cyber city premises. There is no combustible cladding. They replaced it with non-combustible cladding, either plastering or some other products, but they completely refurbished all the buildings where all the multinationals are present, and the cost was in few hundred crores. But yes, DLF did that. DLF learned that from losses, and we need to understand business resiliency is something which is very important here. Yes, another project where those things are very well featured, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport, Terminal 2. I really take proud. I was involved in construction of this roof as well as the Skywell package. And what you say behind the flag is the bullnose area wherein they have used FM approved panels. But what I mean to say, even ACP panels used in the entire airports are with very less combustibility and imported from Japan. I agree with Gopaji. I think we need to check each and everything, test reports. We have to go through everything. We just not tick mark and go ahead and say ki we are safe. We are not safe there. This is always confusion. Fire endurance, reaction to fire, build to code or build to last. I think as Abhishek said, you are the owner of the facility. The building needs to last for 100 years and you need to decide your fate. And you being the owner, I think the legal sort of responsibilities will be definitely there. But beyond that, human life is precious and your businesses are also precious. This is a classic example how you can deal this subject with. There should be fire safety design and construction team. Fire risk assessment should be carried out. Then you should have all occupancy risk should be considered, and then only you should go to fire suppression systems to protect contents and structure. Then go for developing solutions. Then incorporate fire safe solutions and specifications to tender documents and ensure that they are installed properly. So it's a typical cycle and it's a continuous improvement process which we all need to follow. Otherwise, to be very frank, I think we are just talking. My sincere request to all the panelists, let's have this physical session. Let's have special curated presentations on this particular subject and present to National Building Code. I'm trying to talk to some of the MPs and raise this subject. I'm openly telling this because we need to learn and raise this subject in our Samsad, so that we need to strengthen our fire department. They alone cannot fight everything. Deshmukh Saab mentioned about good initiatives, fire license agencies as well as Form B, Form A here in Maharashtra. But then are we able to execute them effectively is the big question. Are we going to learn from 72 deaths, 92 deaths, or we are just going to count the death toll, Rajkot, Delhi Children's Hospital, and tomorrow maybe a new one. We'll discuss for 7-8 days, and then again we'll meet in one of the seminar like this. I request all of you to think seriously. We can drive the change. The last Hosur fire, we discussed that fire yesterday with Mr. Gopakumar, has raised serious questions because we are taking pride in saying Apple is coming to India for manufacturing. I think Foxconn and Tata and all those things. I think fire risk quality of your assets is very important. The supply chain resilience for them is very important because they are running Fortune 500. I think they are into first Fortune 5 companies. So they are very serious about resilience of their entire supply chain. Are we offering them good facilities? And are we not going to learn from this? I leave you, all of you, on this particular question. And Dominic ji, Deshmukh sir, Suresh sir, I think whatever you need from our side, from corporate fraternity, we are there to help you and support you. But let's change the picture before we leave this world. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba Sahib. Can you unshare the screen? And we spoke about the incident. We spoke about statistics. We also discussed what happened. We try to find out the reason. But the question is, how do we prevent the future? Let's talk about, are we prepared to protect lives and property? Is our codes are getting revised? How are we going to implement? So a lot of the Abbas had covered about architects. Do they teach on safety and the structural engineer, project manager? What kind of role? So there's so much of subject that we need to discuss. But however, postmortem is good. This kind of as Abbas have said, another fire will happen again. You come back again, discuss. But how are you going to prevent? So what we'll do is next, we have another 20 minutes. I will pick up 5, 6 maximum question out of this. Then I'll ask panelists 2 minutes from them. What do you think that, strong, prevention measure that you will advise to the audience and also to people who are listening? And I'm sure there's a lot of demand for recording of this to be shared to many. So at the end, then closing, I will ask Mr. Suresh to give your closing remarks. So after getting 2 minutes of listening, what are the prevention method from all that? So I will just pick up 5 questions out of this. There are a lot of questions, only 5 questions. So I will also tell whom this question is addressed to. First is Mr. Deshmukh Taradal. So I would like the answer ought to be very crisp and very short. So question to Mr. Deshmukh: should we provide exclusive refuge area in each ward of ICU or any hospital for vertical patient evacuation in case of fire?
Good question. At least people have started thinking about hospitals. So the basically refuge area on each floor is not doable or practical. What we have been advocating, a few of us, we professionals and others, that every hospital should have the different compartments, say the A wing or B wing or whatever. And in that, there has to be a facility to accommodate the patients of the A wing to B wing and the B wing to A wing, the situation demands. So for that, the proper compartmentation and the extra space for at least time being. But this compartmentation with the independent HVAC system, independent smoke management system, so that the fire from the part A to part B does not spread. And then there will be a breathing time for evacuating the patients to the lower floors and the floors below. But there's a one challenge which I see. Ultimately, there has to be some covered area in the hospital depending upon the occupancy of the patients there and the patient's relatives or the staff, that once these patients are brought down with whatever efforts, either by the hospital staff or by the fire department, the problem is these patients cannot be kept on the open ground. And that is what the case study during the COVID time is showing. There are several hospital fires in different states. I don't want to name the properties and the states. The patients were kept on the open ground. How can you keep the patient on the open ground with the patient? Those are with the life support and things like that. So there has to be, like we in the building, we provide an assembly area. On the similar logic, there has to be a space created. Maybe it can be otherwise used, but in emergency, that space can be created where patients can be brought and can be mobilized to the other hospital or the safe place. So that is the only way out. Of course, the refuge area will come as per the building code wherever at the conspicuous locations, but on every floor to have the refuge area is impractical.
Thank you, sir. The question to Mr. B. Suresh, because he was the IGBC chairman and continued to be active in IGBC. The question is, many of the IGBC conferences, we talk about net zero, sustainability, rating. Why safety is not part of the rating system? in IGBC, or they do not discuss about building material, combustible material they use in to call it their sustainable building. So it is surprising that architect, civil engineer concerned only about sustainability but not safety. Over to you, sir. Sir, can you unmute, sir? Sir, can you unmute? Yeah.
Good question. I think partly misinformation, disinformation, lack of information. That's why you come to the conclusion there. Whereas the basic aspects of anything going green, the first thing is the resilience of the building is the most important thing. Sustainability is the next component. We always say resilience is related to all the safety aspects: structural safety, fire safety, public safety, life safety, health safety, and electric safety, all that. And the sustainability component is the environment, energy, ecology, all that. There are two sides of the same coin. You got to have it safe and also become sustainable. So the green building component covers the latter component there. And one of the fundamental issue that's put in every green building aspect is resilience of the building has got to be checked first to take care of all the safety. Because then the discussion parameters in those things on saving of energy, saving of water, saving on waste management, improving green cover, those are all the green parameters on sustainable development, which is there in part 11. So if you take the building code component there, part 11 is on the sustainability component there. That has got to be done only after taking into account part 4 fire protection, part 6 structural design, part 8 building services, as well as the plumbing services, and more importantly, the issues on assets and facility management. So their answer is there in the, maybe the way you ask the question, it's not that they don't want to do it, it is already covered. So one of the basic issues is that resilience and sustainability are two sides of the same coin. And together with that, there's no meaning in having extremely safe building, but unsustainable building to be done. No, that's also no good. That's what you would mean. The counter question will ask, why is it that people who deal with only the safety one only discuss safety morning to evening, and you don't discuss sustainability? Both are equally important. And to me, having been on both sides of the coin, it's on two sides of the same coin that will bring value to the people, planet, and the whole, community and the built environment.
Sir, another important question to you.
Dominic, can I add?
Sorry?
Can I add something here?
Yeah, quickly. Yeah.
So I think I fully agree with Suresh sir. Whenever I meet him, I always find this question in my mind. Thank you for responding, sir. It's question of businesses now, because BRSR, ESG, and all those standards are also very rigorous nowadays. Not only IGBC, I think they're quite old, but then businesses or owners need to decide the balance between safety, sustainability, and security. So I think you need to comply with the local regulations, your investors, requirements, and all. So that's my answer.
The only thing I might add, Kale Sabit, it is not a matter of or. It has got to be both together. You got to take care of both together. And that's why there are two sides of the same coin. You got to cover both this particular thing aspect. Now that you asked a specific question on that, just like the green building rating, which is already done by the IGBC, there was also rating on resilience rating also coming over there. By the way, can we have a rating to deal only on resilience aspect, on structural safety, on fire safety, on public safety, on life safety? A rating exclusively on that also is being come over there. Instead of the World Bank is already becoming a rating on that resilience rating separately. Maybe you are not aware. This is all work is in progress on that. Work is in progress on that.
Yeah, FSA also got that fire solution index, like you said.
I know, but that's again one aspect. That's again one aspect.
Let's go focus on the questions, sir, because we have time constraints. So let's focus on these questions that are coming in. Again, for Mr. Suresh and Deshmukh, NBC is a wonderful tool for every state to follow. However, certain states not even ready to follow NBC and have their own, codes and standard where they ignore completely NBC. One such case was Andhra Pradesh. I think everybody knows about it. In the coming years, are we doing any effort to make like National Electrical Code is a mandatory? It is no shall or may. So can we have? So what is the future of NBC code? To listen to you, sir.
So let's hear from Deshmukh first, then I'll answer that, because there are a large number of issues. What to be done at the local level for a city, at the state level, then I'll try to give the picture for the national one. So Deshmukh sir, first.
Better you cover first, sir.
No, I have no problem. I have no problem, absolutely. Since you raised a specific issue of one state going a little different way and trying to give a diluted form and not the National Building Code, they burned their finger. It has gone to not only criminal case, the CBI got into it, the investigation has gone to it, whatever recommendation was given by the misguided Director General of Fire Service, where they wanted to really water down everything. Finally, it came down to the issue on what is the more important aspect which is coming there, and that is the provisions of the National Building Code that came over there, and they had to go back. All that negative aspect which was there in the document or the answer, they have to really do a course correction to deal with that particular aspect. And I want to just bring to your notice, large number of the cases already come to the Supreme Court. Now that the highest level is that. And they are telling what are the provisions of the National Building Code of India and safety. And in respect of fire safety related issue, specifically this has already been discussed and clear-cut conditions have already come, especially with respect to hospital fire and school building fire. Supreme Court orders are very clearly there. Provisions of the National Building Code of India in respect of fire protection has got to be ensured. And reports have already gone down to various state governments at the Chief Secretary level. I'll stop there.
Okay, sir. Deshmukh, sir.
See, first problem is there is a little gap in our constitution. And in the constitution, as per the Article 243W, the fire services and even the building control subject is a state subject.
Yes,
It's a state subject. And that being a state subject, code standards, whatever you make at a national level, it is a state's discretion. Discretion is a word which I really find hard to even utter. The discretion in a country like ours, it becomes a black hole. And that discretion is invoked very abruptly, ad hocly, and therefore the states make their own building bylaws. And as I mentioned in my talk, the building bylaws always they conflict with the fire safety and other safety norms. So this is the hitch. Now the subject to be brought under the concurrent list, for that certain efforts are being on, and that will solve this problem. This is number one. Number two, as Mr. Suresh sir said, there are these substantive laws that the judgments passed by the high courts, different high courts and the Supreme Courts. Once that judgment is there, then the states have limitations in fiddling with the provisions of the safety. So Kumbakonam fire, then there are hospital fires, and then there are one Bombay Kohinoor mill, that property development, that tower, that case law. So there are certain case laws. But a case laws also, for example, in the school building, they say the building should be constructed as per the National Building Code. That is Supreme Court in nutshell, I'm telling you. It's a big verdict and the order. But in Supreme Court says the building height of the institutional building, school building should be restricted to 30 meters. Now in Maharashtra, they wanted to raise this height because there is a propelling agent or the propelling engine that works is the builder's lobby. And they wanted this height to be raised. So to raise that height, they have used the technical authorities and they have taken in writing the opinion from them and they have agreed to. Same is the case with the hospital buildings. So it is I mentioned in the very beginning, it is the cohesive effort. It's a political will, it's a bureaucratic will, it is the technocrats' own will to have their own progression in the profession, the mass awareness, what we are doing through these platforms. Together, if we have to address this issue about the change in the subject from the state list to concurrent list, there needs to be an amendment to the constitution, and for that there is a very lengthy procedure. But I have one doubt in my mind, if this present government can remove the Article 370, is it that difficult for them to bring the subject in the concurrent list? And that is my conviction about it. Thank you.
Very well said. Very well
I,
said, sir.
I raise my hand. I raise my hand. I raise my hand. I'm very happy
Yes.
that I'm very happy Deshmukh Sahab has raised this particular issue very clearly. Right or wrong, every state has done that. The 30 meter has been already increased up to 45 meters, including school building and hospital building, based on the 2016 version, with a very clear indication that within the 30 meter, that sensitive area where mobility of the people, the physical ability of the people to do convalescent, ICUs, delivery rooms, where people are already in a very bad situation, that should be restricted to 30-meter height. And another 15 meters, you can do it. I do agree. Some states, even with that 30 to 45 meters, they want to go beyond that. Take my word, they are going to burn their own thing. Tomorrow, if anything is going to happen in a hospital building beyond that 45 meters height over there, if something is going to happen, it is that state that, and already Supreme Court has come very heavily. We are ourselves aware. If they can completely do the Maradu towers, 4 towers, in spite of everything we done, they completely brought it down with implosion. All the Noida towers over there, they brought it down in spite of all the clearance over, all the clearances, including state clearances. Supreme Court has already ordered to remove that. So at the end of it, it will come. It's a marginal temporary time period that they will be able to get for some time a height additional one coming, etc. But the larger issue that comes will be the provision that will be in the national code, because that is being done through a consensus, the best possible technical team. And I just know when I'm doing this comment, Arun Kumar, who is the director of civil engineering and also the National Building Code head now, he has given wonderfully lot of inputs which has come on the chat box just now. Because ACP panel is an important one. The latest standard has come on the ACP panel on that, and the grades which are there, fire resistant ACP panel. Out of 5 grades coming there. So even if you have to use that particular thing as a curtain wall material, use only fire resistant one. Even if you want to use glass, use a fire resistant glass. If you don't want to do that, put that along with active plus passive together with the sprinkler coming. So there are solutions available to deal with all that, which at the national level with the best possible technical minds working on that can give a solution, and not a local requirement of a real estate. It's not a real estate product, a hospital or the school business. It's the life safety of people that is important. Thank you.
So,
Mr. Dominic, I
yes.
know the paucity of time, but the sensitivity is there for the subject. Studied few of the hospitals. For example, the Hopkins Hospital in US, the Guy's Hospital in London, and my then secretary, used to show me on iPad. See, these are the countries where there are such a tall hospital, the tallest hospital in the world. 10 hospitals he showed me. I said it is easy to show on the iPad. I have seen these hospitals, and beyond certain height, they are using this raised floors for the not for the patients or the patient's
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah,
Here in India, the people, those who want to put the ICUs on the top floor, it was a pleasure for me to read those Jayaprakash Narayan was put in the Jaslok hospital when I was a school going boy. So we used to think from there, the mindset is VIP should be in the ICU and ICU should be on the top floor. And how can you have the system supported person to be kept there and evacuated to the ground level? So this is a challenge, but they use for the nurses, for doctors, residents, back office, all these purposes. And here we want to put that the most vulnerable patients on the higher floors. So this mindset is a major problem. And what Suresh sir said is a builder's lobby. And there are many technocrats and professionals in this country. When they sit with the builder's lobby, they are completely inclined toward their side and they are not inclined toward the humanity and the human life. That is a major challenge, Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, a question to Mr. Gopakumar. Are you there, sir? Gopakumar, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. The question to you is like you are part of, you heavily invested your time in National Electrical Code through BIS, and you're also part of National Building Code. Whereas NEC, National Code, insists that there is no, option to choose between other standards. You have to follow these design parameters as per the NEC. Like similarly, NBC, you're also there. What do you see the difference between how NBC also has powerful CA, National Electrical Code of India, How do you think the difference between this and And in the seminar, many people are asking, sir, why NBC doesn't talk about that subject? Why NBC cannot include national, safety, electrical safety also part of it? I think a question, an answer from you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, NBC talks about the entire building, the entire structure, or it covers much bigger subject. But electrical engineering subject has need its own specialization. Now, NEC is a document about 750 pages. I would say NEC has to be read along with IS 732, which is another 300-page document. If you look at the actual content of NEC, it's maybe about 1,000 pages. Almost the 99% of the contents are of mandatory requirement. Now, whatever written in NBC, the electrical part on the building services, every time the standards are upgrading. 2016 NBC when we made during 2014 or 15. So the contents are made based on the electrical standards prevailing at that time. Some requirements which is related to building. For example, in a building you wanted to place a transformer. The spacing required in a building relating to a transformer or relating to an electrical installation. It is a subject which is also related to the civil engineer or to the architect, because architect has to provide space. Those informations are more included in NBC. Of course, it is also there in NEC, but in NBC, it is written as a requirement of, let us say, for example, a space required. Whereas in NEC, it is put in a little bit different way. You see, what is the problem is, if there is conflict between these two standards, there can be a problem. Of course, there are some improvements required, which we will be taking up in the upcoming session. Otherwise, the documents in both the documents are required. Over to you, Suresh sir.
Yeah, my clarification is in continuation of what Gopakumar has said. Usually the latest document which has come from government of at the highest level from the electricity authorities, electricity one, where not only the provisions of the National Electrical Code as well as the NBC section on electrical installation is already become a mandatory component as per the document. In fact, Gopakumar has actually, in some other program, I had opportunity to participate together in Palakkad, Institution of Engineers. He shared that particular document which the electricity authority people themselves have really shared that document. You are aware of that, Gopakumarji, I'm sure. Their specific provisions of, because they are dealing with electrical installation. There are statutory authorities, the electrical inspectorate and the lift inspectorate. Lift inspectorate for lift installation. 13 states do not have separate lift inspectorate. So electrical inspectorate itself deal with electrical installation as well as lift installation coming in a very large way. So it's already, so that is what I'm trying to say. If Maharashtra document is already under the act, they already put NBC as a document. The moment the day, here, for example, all the building, just for information, I just put on the chat box with after Arun Kumar's clarification there. If you see the Kerala municipal building rules or Kerala Panchayat building rules or Andhra Pradesh rule, etc., all of them very clearly indicate that the provisions of the National Building Code shall be followed in respect of structural design, in respect of structural safety, in the health safety, fire safety part 4, as well as building services. They are all that they write is one line there. It shall be conformed to, the moment that line comes over there, it shall be in line with part 6 structural design of the National Building Code for structural safety, on services in line with part 8 building services, and part 9 automatically is a deemed to satisfy provision there, by which the mandate, the recommendatory and guiding document state of the national building becomes a mandatory status. The moment that finds a place, even though it's a state level document, as he rightly said, it's a state level subject, city level subject. The moment a regulatory one under Town Planning Act or a Municipality Act or Electricity Act or various other act under which their local rules are there, in that particular thing, if the NBC is mentioned over there for compliance, that's what really counts at the end of the day. And that's what I said, even though it's a recommendatory and a guiding document from the point of view of technology to be brought in at all points, as Gopakumar rightly said over there, And therefore, that keeps on changing. Local rules can't be changed so often there. So latest provision of the National Building Code should apply in such case. And that is already finding place because of the legal, I call the techno-legal regime. A
So
legal document.
Sir, because another two more questions to we have Mark and we have Abhishek. There are two questions to waiting for them. Mark, this is for you. Are you there, Mark? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, there's a question for you. The Grenfell Tower, there was a fire. Was there evacuation strategy was in place after that incident? How, after the commission report, does the government made evacuation strategy mandatory in UK? One question for you.
Excuse me. So, in essence, as I said in the presentation, in 2005, the Regulatory Reform Fire Order, the RRO, says for commercial buildings, excuse me, for commercial buildings, you have to have a fire strategy in place, an evacuation strategy in place, which includes a general emergency evacuation plan. The challenge with Grenfell, it was a residential building, which doesn't take into account. So, and the focus tends to be on a stay put, stay put evacuation. What's happened? Excuse me, I'll just have one drink. But then what's changed is the Fire Safety Act, and the Building Safety Act is now taken into account residential buildings. So as a result, excuse me, as a result, it will be taken into account. And one of the key recommendations that I said earlier would be to implement PEEPs, which would have saved the 72 people there. So in essence, before Grenfell, there was a compliance in place from 2005, but only for commercial buildings. Now it's all buildings.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. This hall building must have a evacuation strategy. So thank you very much for that. I think that answers the question. There are a couple of questions on that. The next question to Abhishek. Abhishek, there's a question on, again, from my point of view, you've been traveling world over and you are there supporting the entire, the Middle East market. Do you think that testing of all material, I know that in the chat box also is going on, chatting on that, is India is prepared to have a lab to test all the material that goes into the building? What is your opinion on, India when it comes to testing of material? What is your suggestion to the audience and to the regulatory authorities who's listening?
So I'll start with what Arun Kumar ji mentioned in one of the chats. We are lucky to have him also kind of part of the whole event. That the law of the land prevails. And I must say that India has been gearing up fairly well when it comes to standards. There are standards. For example, and it's part of the chat as well, there is a standard for aluminum composite panel. And the Indian standard for aluminum composite panel talks about reaction to fire tests. And it is already there. A couple of days ago, I posted on my LinkedIn feed, there are 15 fire resistance test methods which are part of the National Building Code. It's there. We have these tests. These are Indian standards, by the way. And some of them are ISO Indian standards. And there are laboratories who are testing. Some probably not too well, but it boils down to, people using these things. It's like chicken and egg. Will the test report come first? Will the test lab come first? Or will someone go to say that I want to test the product? So there are test labs in our country which can do testing, fire testing for almost everything that is required for reaction to fire, resistance to fire, propagation to fire. There are test laboratories in Chennai, in many parts of the country, who are doing large-scale fire propagation tests already. So I feel the facilities exist locally in the country, internationally, of course, and it's It's a happy surprise that there are international labs, not one, but many, who are even offering testing to Indian standards. And I feel it boils down to the industry to start using and implementing them. It's a very complex matter. We discussed over 2 hours around it. There are so many stakeholders across the states. It boils down to something very, very basic. Are you, as whatever stakeholder you are you bothered about human life and fire safety? If you are, you will go out of the way to get the right measures in place. And if life safety does not bother you, and I'll be very blunt about it, there are people who are not, then is property safety your concern? Are you driven by money? If yes, then save your money. I'm being very blunt about it. It's a very complex subject. People could, send me hate emails for speaking what I just said. But let's talk practical where we are right now. Fire safety is very, very important. Life safety, property safety is coming out of fire safety. You can take whichever route you want to, but fire safety is very important. So, yes, there are labs. Yes, there is conformity assessment. You asked for it. How many manufacturers in India have been exporting their products which are complying to international fire safety norms, American standards, British standards, European standards? People are doing this everywhere. So we get what we want. That's my last statement. We get what we want. What do you want?
We get what you want. So Abbasai has raised his hand. Over to you, Abbasai, as a concluding, maybe the remarks
Yes.
from you, from your
Yeah.
side.
So just I think on law of land, I was discussing with one of the legal expert, and in one of the case, he very clearly told me, do whatever you want on this land. NBC is the final mile where you have to go and check. So he was very clear. He said there are acts, there are architecture act, there are fire acts, there are electrical acts, there are so many acts, and you have last mile reference to National Building Code. So I think though it is not having status of act or whatever you say, but it is ultimately there. So let's give that message here very clearly. You can't avoid NBC at all. If you want to be here in India, you have to be there. On the second point of, I think what Abhishek said, I think I was also pretty surprised with the facilities which are here in India. The only thing is the specifiers, the professional integrity like architects and all other stakeholders who are supposed to check all those things. Owners, especially, they cannot pass on the blame to somebody else, but they have to also take and they have to specify. We want test reports as per these standards, and the things will start moving. There's so many gaps on what should be the revision and all those things, but then people like Abhishek and we will try to create awareness on that, on the certification, and but the specifiers must take their responsibility to specify those things and get it vetted and validated. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are almost 2.5 hours. So let me have the last comment from Mr. Deshmukh before I ask our guest of honor, Mr. Suresh, to give final remark. Over to Mr. Deshmukh for his final remarks, sir. So can you unmute, sir? Yeah.
Yeah. In a brief, what I would say that as compared to a decade before or 2 decades before, there is definitely a good progress, positive impact is there. Especially, I'm very glad the way the BIS as a whole facility, the way it is being upgraded, and there is a dynamic change in that. There's a lot of digitization in that. So I think it will help us to periodically change our codes and standards. And there's always a concern that even the National Building Code itself is amended once in 10 years or so. So that also we are finding it difficult because the professionals are not coming together to give inputs. So BIS has its own limitations. So there is a demand at least every 3 years. Somebody has raised this point in the chat also, that every 3 years these codes and standards need to be updated. There are many old standards which we need to update. Of course, BIS is doing a great job, and that will be the torch bearer for the whole nation under the leadership of Mr. Sanjay Pant and Arun Kumar. So, and we will try to give a bit out of us, and everyone I will request here to give a bit out of us for the BIS to be strengthened. The second part of the game comes is the implementation. The implementation also will come provided we keep on doing this kind of a mass awareness. I must honestly confess that we as a regulator, we have no adequate training facilities. So very few handful of people, though they have come up with their own efforts, but there is no design plan, training, development program, capacity building, human resource management. This needs to be done. And I think we can be a good nation as such. Thank you so much.
We can be a good nation. So I'm requesting Deshmukh sir as the chairman of FSIF, Fire Safe India Foundation. The awareness must continue. We must have a physical seminar because long time we have no, because we don't talk on the subject, even though there are seminars happening. It's more of commercial, kind of seminars. But I'm sure you will take the lead in bringing all the stakeholders for this, including BAS team, everyone. I think we must have. So a long time we have not done this. So I'm sure the next, before end of this year, we have to have similar kind of discussion in length. So I look forward for that support from you, and I'm there. Anything from all, we have so many good speakers around. We can bring them on single platform. So it is 1:26, exactly 4 minutes. 4 minutes to Mr. V. Suresh. A strong concluding remark from a end, sir.
Thank you very much, Dominic. First of all, let me congratulate you for the wonderful initiative that has been taken for organizing a program of this nature. We started on time. Very good. Good message to everybody. All the distinguished participants have brought in so much amount of value with their wonderful experience running to decades of, if I add it all together, we have between each one of the speakers put together roughly of the order of about 200 years of experience between each. I just calculated the experience there. And more importantly, it has brought in a very interesting topic with respect to what has been happening in Grenfell fire as the starting point. Similar things are happening here, but the way in which it happened over there, the report has really opened out the mind of many people. And you yourself done large number of initiatives in the last 1 month or 2 months on facade-related issue, electrical fires in a big way. Gop Kumar contributing in a very large way, and I'm very happy discussions have gone in an excellent manner on all aspects of the particular. And I'm sure with Abhishek also adding his own thing of the international experience in a large way, it adds value. And I'm very happy, even though Arun Kumar, even though didn't participate, he was there right from the beginning till end, and he has brought in so much amount of issues related to in the chat box. So next time when you do that, please ensure that the director of civil engineering and the head of NBC is also associated with this particular one. He has given very useful comments on. I like the last word comment which came from Khalid Saab on NBC, and our torchbearer comment coming from Deshmukh Saab. These are all very, very important things. At the end of the day, there's nobody within a state or which can have the type of technical, what can I say, people of such large nature, 1,280 experts to come and talk on it on a current topic now, and Bureau of Indian Standard has the right level of bandwidth to deal with the particular thing, and they're ready to change as and when it happens over there. And even when some state went astray, like the Andhra Pradesh case, they had to come back in a very short possible time. But let me tell you that even there, it is they who came to say, what is the BIS point of view on that? The ministry they went. They said, what's the BAS point of view on that? They went to Supreme Court. What is the NBC point of view on that? So that's it. These are all very, very important thing. And I agree with Deshmukh sir. Things have changed substantially over the last 2 decades point of view from what it was earlier to what it is now. There is increasing level of awareness, appreciation, and application going in a very large way among not only the fire authorities, plus also electricity authorities, local body. I told you very large number of local body people only put NBC as a document in all their building regulation. The automatically it becomes compulsory and mandatory, even though by itself the document is having the recommendatory and guiding stature on that. It's a very good thing. Positive, we didn't have much time to build upon. We spent 2.5 hours. There's a lot of good time otherwise. But otherwise, these are topics we should keep on doing. Maybe slices should be taken. You took only one aspect, namely the outer curtain wall or the envelope design of the building, which was the starting point for all the fire. And I'm very happy Kale sir brought us a wonderful experience of not only what is in UK, but also in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Azerbaijan, all that. I'm very happy to tell that. I was asking Abhishek briefly why is that, because they don't want to tell that in Dubai that so many fires did take place on a similar account, even though they themselves are the biggest court. That's why UAE regulations also undergoing change, like the NFPA document also. Very good, positive from all point of view. And thank you very much. And Fire Safe India Foundation, the Bureau of Indian Standards, all have to put their act together, including focus in a very large way. And I'm very happy about the testing facilities coming. But one of the recommendations, even for the Grenfell fire, is even in the US, even UK, they wanted to have a fire testing separate one to deal, especially assembly and final product related one, doors and walls, etc. Even the fire research laboratory, you have over there, like CBRI has. But then I was very happy to learn yesterday that you have the NFPA firefighting facilities they have in Chennai that they recently opened out. I mean, there are facilities coming up, but this is an area where the country do require, if that committee report after 7 years, they have to really bring out a report of a national fire testing laboratory. UK can bring that. We can also try to work on that particular thing in a large way than what CBRI are doing in a little way, or IIT Gandhinagar are doing in a little way, on some of the aspects on fire testing, etc. There is a definite case for that. Ask the Niti Aayog to give around 200 or 300 crores of money for dealing not only for elements, but also assembly and installation. What is important, not only materials, but also installation component in a very large way. And that will be a very good thing. We'll get support on that in a very large way. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Everybody enjoyed it similarly.
Thank you very much for the closing remarks, sir. I want to appreciate all the panelists, all the participants who've been patiently listening to us for 2.5 hours. In a webinar like this, the patient doesn't go beyond, 45 to 1 hour. But I'm so happy that, you've been patient that to weekend on Saturday. I'm sorry, we have taken up your time. And it's so nice to have you, the wonderful discussion, wonderful panelists. I want to thank all the panelists from London to Dubai to Delhi to Trivandrum.
Mark Roberts for morning.
Of course, early morning, waking up and willing. So that shows,
It was a pleasure.
Abhishek,
thank you.
Dubai, all the time they spent.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for joining. I know, it's Saturday early morning there. And Gopakumar, continuous marathon meetings, the webinars, and all that. So thank you so much for wonderful participation, good discussion, and I will make sure that this recording goes into everybody's WhatsApp group, and do share. And we welcome you back once again later. Maybe we'll have a series 2 or something. But I'm looking for a physical seminar by.
We'll disseminate. The moment it comes, the recording with all that, we can very widely disseminate to all over the country in a very large way.
I'll come out with 2 points. Summary of this whole thing, I will come out and present you as a paper. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful week. Safe living, a safe weekend with your family. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Take care.